Guys, welcome back to another week of Project Celeste Community Challenge, Age of Empires Online. So we've got a familiar face from a few years ago with Kaspar playing. So Kaspar hasn't played AoEO for a number of years. Today he's up against Indoors, a player I believe that's come from AoE 2. That's a little bit newer, but pretty solid player. Hasn't spent a huge amount of time on the game though. Indoors right now. Just transferring to the hunt there, 5 villages to that. Getting on the wood at the moment, so his barracks will be a little bit delayed if he is going to go for one. Kaspar has actually been practicing a little bit of spear rush, so he's going to opt for that at the moment. Right now 7 villages at work, 6 on the food, 1 making that barracks, and I imagine he's going 1 more on the food from the TC and probably sending her to go onto the food as well. And then starting on some wood gathering so you can get spiral production, maintain houses. Indoors at the moment, it's hard to say what he's doing. Hasn't gone for hunting dogs yet, hasn't yet got the wood for it. Which, you know, that's not really out of the ordinary when Romans does this opening. But if he doesn't spend on it now, he's possibly just holding up the wood to go for a barracks if he does get spear rushed. Or Spara rushed in this instance. A unique unit for Persia. So Sparas don't actually innately counter cavalry like spearmen do. But instead they're just a really nice generalist melee tank. They're obviously a bit of a threat to villages as well. So Indoors, is he gonna just go for a fairly quick age 2 here? Oh no, he's spending a lot more on villages at the moment and gonna commit to the Castellum. So he didn't actually scout the base, but I think he might have possibly seen one of these Spara here. So Persian Quarries is a bit unique with these cliffs at the side, full of a lot of resources. I think one side's got a lot of stone, the other one's got a lot of gold, and otherwise it's similar resources to what you get in a small map around the players' bases as well. There's a lot of berries, gold, stone, a couple of hunts in the mix here. Maybe a couple less hunts than you otherwise would have because you've got some up on these high grounds instead. But it's a pretty big map. Indoors really committing to age 1, just like Kaspar at the moment. Both having invested in that barracks. They got that house up to 19 population apiece. Kaspar actually up to 20 at the moment. Although this isn't great for Kaspar, he doesn't need to take this fight. Just let a scout kill that, or let it be a pest for your opponent. Indoors, a little lucky that Kaspar's actually got to try and get past that rhino, maybe kill it with the scout in order to actually get on top of the barracks there. I mean, get on top of the hunt, because right now, if Indoors can save on having to invest in spearmen, if the Persian player does go for a lot of these Spara, you can just field like a legionary or 2 and really trade quite cost effectively. Kaspar, no hunt on this side, so it's not ideal for him to push in this situation. Indoors is gathering a lot of gold at the moment though. Possibly going to go for a quick age 3. Just judging by what he has got in the bank here. He hasn't actually gathered any stone for an age 2 town centre here. Taking the fight with villagers and the engineer. Kaspar's not actually focusing on a single villager, which is not great, because right now he could get a villager kill. A little bit easier than if he's got that damage split across the 2. This is not an ideal fight once he's got those low Spara. Because even though the spearman's outnumbered, there is the villagers and the engineer to back up. This is costing Indoors a little bit of food gather time. Kaspar setting up for his age 2 town centre. Indoors hasn't gone for his. He's just floating a bit of wood and gold. A little bit light on for food at the moment, so it'd be tough for him to afford afford legionaries and Vil production. So he's giving up Vil production briefly. No. Yes, actually he is. So Praetorium, really strong cavalry unit from the Decurion at his fingertips very shortly. Kaspar Got access to spearmen now, so he can counter those pretty easily, but he's going to have to field ranged, field some bowmen to fight against the infantry, particularly legionaries, but also any potential spearmen. Indoors going double eco-techs here. This is pretty smart. It's quite safe at the moment, although I don't like the fact that he's only playing around one town centre at the moment. I think Kaspar, if he can get the second one up uninterrupted here, it should give him a nice economic lead the longer the game goes on. Kaspar going to get a couple of units out to defend. More villages on this barracks. I mean, this town centre is going to mean it's going to build really slowly. Kaspar doesn't lose as much in terms of his active economy trying to get that up at this stage, because if you've got 8 or 9 villages building the town centre, sure, it gets built really quickly, but you also do lose out in gathering. Overall, there is diminishing returns on adding additional villages to build. But around 6 is probably ideal. So this guy's going to be really tanky. Indoors hasn't really engaged just yet. Kaspar's going to see now. A couple of spearmen will fare well against the Decurion. Kaspar's already committed to aid tent as well. It's very early. He's mostly been the aggressor so far as well, but I think he quite likes the tech. He micro and focus down the Decurion. That's a lot of damage it's actually taking there. Well, the spears haven't really taken a lot at all. Indoors is trying to micro, and he's doing well too. He's not really doing much damage to villages at the moment. One of them's a little bit low there. Kaspar's got to remember to... Oh, he's a little bit slow on the garrison. I think he briefly just forgot about garrisons there. A little bit slow on the garrison, but otherwise he comes out of that quite well. The Decurion... Did that fall in the end? So, the Decurion for the villager. I think when you've got 2 TC and your opponent's only got 1, it's definitely worthwhile. When things are the other way round, it's not so worthwhile. Indoors up to 3 production buildings. Kaspar's making a start on some more of his own here. Desperate to get up that next archery range, and he needs to maintain barracks production here as well. Though he is struggling a little bit for the food there. Maybe gathered a little bit on the gold. Getting his picker's gloves. Indoors, meanwhile, really quite a solid 1 TC commitment here. So he's got double Castell and Praetorium, so the equivalent of double barracks and stables for the other civs. Quite a meaty army already. And against Persia, this might work quite well, because your opponent just doesn't have a great deal of melee to deal with this. So if he hasn't got enough range to snipe individual infantry, or hasn't got the ability to get his spears on top of your Decurions, you can lose an awful lot for it. Kaspar just needs to keep trading through this, because I don't think he's completely done for here. He does have a few bowmen in the mix, but he needs to make sure he's garrisoning through this. Indoors is only on 1 TC production at this time, so, you know, Kaspar could actually not worry about building out of this for the meanwhile. Keep just training out of the other one and just play on like normal. Just mass up units, try and pick off these legionaries, and ultimately, you know, overwhelm this so you save your own town centre. It's indoors. This push, 31 villages to 35. Indoors is still a little bit behind here, even though he's well up on population. He does have map control though, and he does have that armory already. Hasn't yet got any upgrades at it yet, and he's adding some more ecotechs, getting pickaxe. Kaspar's also got 4 ecotechs already, but Kaspar needs to retreat here. He doesn't want to fight the Decurions. He really needs to start that spear production again. He just needs like 5 or 6 spears here, and he can really slow down these Decurions. Spend time, you know, sniping individual or pairs of legionaries at a time here, because he can get them quite quickly. An aid tent's quite useful for Kaspar here. Maybe not for the bowmen, the health pool is really, really tiny, but for the spears, I think, and if you end up fielding Asabara or Immortals later on in the matchup, I think it's definitely worthwhile. Even using the scout here to try and tank, that's a good idea actually. So this is some good control here by Kaspar. Things have gotten a bit messy here, but he's reintroduced spears. So this is good, he can focus down Decurions. He's actually done well to snipe that one there, but these guys are now taking a fight against Legionaries, so that's not ideal. Indoors is doing a good job to keep a Decurion or two at least. Always focusing the Bowman ball here. But this other one's focusing the Scout, which, you know, it's not ideal for him because he's just having to deal 600 health more than 600 health worth of damage because of aid 10. But eventually, Indoors does manage to overwhelm the army here. But 38 villages to 35, he's not hugely... Ooh. Another Decurion goes down. And Kaspar needs to really be careful to not lose bowmen like this. Because Indoors is able to just keep massing up through this. He's doing well to make sure his opponent doesn't really pull ahead economically. Kaspar closing the gap in villages there, but you know, Indoors has still got a little bit of an army lead here, so if he can keep this pressure up, I think he can walk away with this one. But in saying that, I think Kaspar was smart enough to maintain that spear production this time. And mostly Legionaries now for Indoors. He's getting some slingers in the mix, so this is going to mean Kaspar's going to have to try and fit in Asabara here. Indoors getting in ranged armor, which is really useful. This composition already has a fair bit of ranged armor, pierce armor innately here. So pierce armor I should call it. Ranged units deal pierce damage. Not pierce units deal range damage, okay guys? Kaspar's starting to get his own upgrades here, but hasn't really repaired anything over here, and his army's sitting back at his main base there. Indoors pushing in, he's fighting a bit of food here, but he does have a strong population lead at the moment. Eco's actually starting to favour Indoors, even though he hasn't finished the second TC at the moment. Has been trying to repair the town centre there. He needs to get a few spearmen in the front of this, so he can take out the Decurions and have his bowmen focus the Legionaries. So Indoors, smart control here, not overstaying, and in fact, he can sort of afford to let this happen. Even though it'll cost him a couple of Decurions, he will get the town centre out of it. He can kill a couple of villages now. So Kaspar, merely armor coming in for him, but I think this might be it here, unless he can survive this next fight in a big way and start to push himself, because now Indoors is up a town centre. Kaspar's going to have to start gathering stone. He's got plenty of stone gatherers though, plenty of wood floated as well, so he can afford to keep spitting out bowmen. But these slingers now for Indoors. Indoors not actually training anything at the moment, but he's got second TC established. Not training out of it though. He's had that ranged armor already, and is transitioned to slingers. A bit of melee in the front there as well. So Kaspar's going to have to try and get to H3 and get Immortals. Try and get his second town center and his third town center out, I think. Indoors was very all-in-y for a bit there with that double Castellum Praetorium push, but then he did sneak in the second TC and also managed to take out Kaspar. So now he's in the driver's seat with a 13 villager lead at, 48 to 35. Kaspar, in the meanwhile, is spending a lot better, which, well, he's spending better, but it also means he's got less to spend. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because he's behind in terms of stuff. And he is committing to age 3, so it's another 900 resources he won't have. Scary number of bowmen here, and they do have range damage, melee armor. Getting ranged armor now, but he really needs a front line of some sort. Ideally, probably Asabara at the moment, because they're not going to take counter damage from Legionary or from the Slingers. Storehouse here for Kaspar, getting on the berries. Got a little bit of gold in the bank, needs a bit more food. But yeah, there's no spears here at the moment. Decurons are actually going to fall fairly quickly just because there's a lot of range damage here, but they're also much more easily countered by spearmen. So indoors. 113 pop to 63 here. He's 50 population ahead, roughly at the moment. Tuckerbar on the way here for Kaspar. Interesting choice, considering there's so much good melee that has ranged armor, or pierce armor I should say. Asabara on the way as well. And Indoors hasn't yet had to train spearmen all game, so sometimes you can catch people out if they're not quick enough on the transition back to spearmen from their counter infantry unit. Because they can just sort of be dead in the water against a comp that's basically ranged anti-infantry, you know, merely anti-ranged and ranged anti-ranged. A lot of damage for infantry to be taking. You've got bigger health pools than ranged units, but smaller ones than cavalry. Third TC for Kaspar. Going up soon. Indoors. Going for age 3 now. 130 population and capped out for the time being. So 60 villages to 42. And Kaspar not out of this yet, I don't think. Especially if you can get a couple of immortal camps. And just maintain somewhat of a front line. But indoors, that's a really nice slinger ball here. And with a few Decurons in the mix as well. With the bowmen focusing on them rather than legionaries, it does give you a lot of room to push and take out frontline, or even try and dive the ranged units yourself, or take out structures. Indoors a pretty solid bank at the moment, so you can afford to lose this army and keep going. Kaspar in the meanwhile, well, he's transitioning to Immortals. This will be really solid against these units, actually. If he can survive long enough here and just keep microing through this. Force Indoors to chase him. Don't even worry about turning, just basically force him to chase you. The villager's garrison. If he can mass up a dozen Immortals, he can probably actually turn this around easily. Three TC for Kaspar. Indoors getting his third town centre now. This isn't really enough to clean out Kaspar's base here. But a few more villages under pressure. The Mortal's actually able to trade really well here in this situation against both Slingers and Legionaries. 44 villages to 64, so that lead still is growing a little bit. Kaspar, a few idlers around the map here. Last couple of soldiers there getting cleaned up by Kaspar. Indoors, really solid economic situation behind this now. Legionary champion finishing up now, so those guys will fare better against Immortals now with increased health and damage. These guys are really, really solid. Population definitely favouring Indoors, but 20 of that is eaten up in terms of economy, and I do think if there were a few less bowmen, a few more Immortals here, this would actually be a composition situation really favouring the Persian player. Immortals just aren't as strong as them. There needs to be something to help fight off the cavalry here, I think. few Immortals actually in the back there, and they're able to really clean up the Slingers. They trade quite favourably against them, just with a huge health advantage. So indoors, that army does get cleaned up there. Kaspar turn things around here, but indoors transitioning to Ekes. These guys are going to be good against basically everything except Spearmen. Kaspar getting Immortals. He's going to need to add another barracks and add Spearmen to counter that, I think. Well, indoors is going to want to make sure that he does not neglect getting Aquilifers here, because these guys have a really nice damage bonus to the Roman army. Now he doesn't necessarily need to worry about Decurions. I think Ekes are a better unit choice here on out. Just because they can raid faster, they can actually counter cavalry and ranged. Really the only thing they're worse against is infantry. And maybe like ranged pierce damage from static defense. Otherwise, Ekes are definitely the way to go. And the only way Persia can really clean them up is either going with mounted archers or getting spearmen. So, and I think you're better off going spearmen, because the mounted archers, obviously, as much as they can fight against a cavalry that's anti-ranged, they can't actually tank it. They can just try and damage race it. Indoors, 79 villagers. Kaspar at just 60. That plays a little bit of a way off maxing out at the moment. So indoors is his Age 3 ranged armor now. Age 2 melee and ranged damage. Kaspar's situation is he's really only got... Oh no, he's got Age 2. Everything except melee damage. So he's really only one upgrade behind at the moment. It's not too bad. His scoreline, the score is actually sort of starting to grow back for him here. He's less proportionally behind than what he was. Starting to get more text in the way. For now, indoors isn't actually training anything. He still has 20 pop to go. He still leads over Kaspar on that front, but 10 of that is in eco here, so he's about 20 pop ahead at the moment. Kaspar actually getting a watch post there. But indoors has picked the other side. Indoors trying to fight under the town centre here. Doesn't want to get caught trying to take it out and losing his whole army to Kaspar's whole army. This is a bit of a weird situation. You don't really see Ekes fighting against Immortals like this. Ultimately, I think because they're front-lining for Immortals and Bowmen with their own Bowman support, it does end up being a fight that goes indoors' way. He just has more, you know, more units countering than what his opponent does, essentially, with damage. And he did have that small population gap there and that upgrade advantage, but he still hasn't quite finished off this town centre, so this is still getting Kaspar a lot of value. It's slowly picking off units here. Ekes going down there. Not exactly sure why it's so stuttery, guys. I do apologise for that. And Kaspar is able to clean everything up in the end here. Indoors just not quite able to deal a killing blow here. And every time he's retreating here, it is throwing away an advantage he's got. Because right now, I was going to say, right now Kaspar's actually caught up in terms of population a bit. For the first time in a while. And then indoors just queues everything up. But indoors is spending a lot at the moment. Does have a good number of eco techs. Does have his farming upgrades. And all his wood upgrades. Yeah, so he's got age 3 farming there. Age 2 gold gathering. Indoors going to try and dive the gatherers over the back here. A lot of them exposed. Stone, food, wood, some idlers. Kaspar a little bit slow to respond to this, and it's costing him a little bit in terms of his eco. 79 to 67 Vil counts. I didn't quite get what they were before that engagement there, but I think Kaspar lost 4 villages or 3. But right now, Indoors is just about at 180 pop. He's pushing quite well here. Be able to afford just continually staying at this population for now. Doesn't look like Kaspar's actually pushing him anywhere. Does have good vision of the map, Kaspar, but it's all in areas where Indoors isn't. Indoors, once again, just doesn't have enough of a front line left at the moment. Oh no, wait, he does have a few Decurions over here, trying to get a few gatherers. 62 Vils to 79. Kaspar doesn't have everything fighting at the moment, so it's not ideal, but he has thinned out a lot of Indoors' army, who now has actually run out of gold. Oh, Indoors hasn't brought his whole army here. He's been camping these berries, and I think that really could have made the difference there, because this force pretty much would have folded if it ran into that. Both players gathering from the same gold mine here, and Kaspar's actually floating a little bit more of every resource at the moment. Indoors, well, actually, you know, I'll take that back. He's got a crap load of gold at the moment. Oh, he's got 4 markets here, so he's going to start market trade shortly. Did sell a little bit of wood, I think, to get gold there. Centurions in production now. Neither player getting any armory upgrades for a little bit here. Oh no, Kaspar's actually got ranged damage age 3. Going age 4 now. Big resource commitment though. I do think he would be better off just getting to 180 pop first and then worrying about it. Right now, Kaspar, I don't know if he's realized he's 4 houses short of what he could be. It's pushed. I didn't actually notice this at first, but Kaspar's reacted first here. He's put a fortress down on the gold mine. There's mostly stone on this side. The other side, it's mostly gold, but there's a few stone mines. I think there might be another mine or 2 in the corners here too. Kaspar's going to try and engage on the markets there for Indoors, but Indoors, a really healthy army here. Legionaries, Centurions, and the Ekes. A more mounted archer might actually be a reasonable comp here. But he probably just wants to get a handful of spears in the mix of this too. But while this raid's going on, it'll take a while to chop through all those markets, so I don't think Indoors is too worried about that at the moment. Kaspar running low on gold here, and the Asabara just can't take fights against Ekes like that. You're gonna have to get spearmen. Indoors not even fighting with his whole army here. And Kaspar got himself an awful lot of map control here. But Indoors, his base is just untouched here, so he's just able to keep on pushing, keep on applying pressure. Just make sure his opponent never gets ahead. Indoors going to try and put a defensive fortress up on his market line here. I think this Centurion might be... Oh, I was going to say, he might be able to finish off these guys, but... Looks like he's going away to the fortress for some reason. So he doesn't fare very well there. But meanwhile, Kaspar losing a town centre here. He does have the resources to replace it, but he does need to get a bit more stone, a little bit more gold. He's got plenty of wood at the moment. Indoors not actually taking the town centre. I think he either should have got out earlier here or just stuck around taking the town centre, because he's lost most of the units getting out of here. So I think that's a pretty big loss in terms of, you know, the gold he's got. But in the meanwhile, nice little raid here with the other half of his army. He should be able to get this town center. He's got a couple of villagers, a couple of Ekes focusing down the villages repairing. The more Kaspar has to commit to this, you know, the worse it's going to be. He's going to lose even more villagers and stone doing this. 85 to 62 villager counts at the moment. Mounted Archer champion coming in for Kaspar. It's going to make his Mounted Archers a lot more cost effective. They'll be cheaper. They'll have more range, a better bonus against cavalry. He's not quite able to get this market here. Kaspar's run out of stone. He needs to try and get stone from somewhere. He's got access to a lot of it, actually. He's got some over here he could go for. He's not going to be able to take out that market. Nah, the Asabaro's going to die too early. So indoors, didn't get either town center here somehow. But I think this time round he should be able to get both. Although he's not pushing in from the other side yet. And Kaspar running out of gold, running out of stone here. Has transferred onto a stone mine now. Kaspar's running in pretty far there. I think he could have got a volley or two off there a little bit quicker, and again, without a proper anti-cavalry melee front line here, it's really tough because the Ekes can just eventually chop through everything. But somehow, he's making it work. The Asabara really shouldn't be in this composition and doing well, but they somehow didn't all get skewered there. And this range backline is actually a, I'd say a reasonable choice with Immortals and Bowmen in the mix. But yeah, against Ekes, the Bowmen, the Asabara, it's a really dicey pick. The Mounted Archers as well. I mean, they're great, but ideally you do want to have a couple of spears in the mix. Indoors, going to age 4 now. That would be nice. He might be able to deal the killing blow here. He is leading in terms of eco size, so he's not really able to fight with the same size army, but he's also able to gather a lot more. He's got so much food in the bank. He'll probably just focus on gathering wood here for the moment. So indoors waiting for his age up to finish. Kaspar just starting his market eco. Trying to repair that town center. We wanted to get another town center. It's smart from indoors just to try and get that central gold mine. Especially because Kaspar's got so much gold accessible around the sides of the map. He was trying to get on top of the stone here as well. We're also working through all the resources around the map. There's still plenty of food though, particularly berries for Kaspar at the moment. Trying to push forward. He is catching a lot of these villages, but this is really giving indoors population space at this point because he is up still by villages, 85 to 75. So his field count's still healthy, bleeding that couple of villages in order to get a bit more of that gold, get a few Gallics out. So they won't actually cost 125, 100. They will cost 101.81 because of the prior auxiliary camp tax, which actually reduce cost for units at them. So if I mouse over this, this is a cool little feature. I didn't realize this before actually. If I mouse over the Gallic horsemen, they pop up at their original cost value. So 125, 100. Click on the auxiliary camp, mouse over it again, 101.81. Because, yeah, the two auxiliary attacks. Indoors. Taking the engagement. Kaspar trying to wall off around the map. These guys, Galax in the mix, are a little bit beefier than the Ekkers, but they are also not a true counter unit. Kaspar, holy, just evaporates Indoors' army with that. GG, Indoors taps out. I don't believe it. Kaspar, he's actually put together the comp that makes Indoors just not want to play on here. Indoors is actually, in terms of the bank, is so far ahead. But Kaspar putting together this just pure ranged comp at this point. He's got age 4 damage. Indoors only has age 2 ranged armor. Oh no, age 3 ranged armor. He has got age 3 ranged armor, so but he is down by 1 overall there. I mean, you can get catapults.